Well, there are 525 teapots altogether. It is the largest collection in the world, and it's valued at around $2 million. Dr. Frederick Freed left the collection to the city of Trenton, a small West Tennessee city.
525 teapots, and not a drop of tea to drink. These antique teapots are all on display in glass cases in the Trenton City Hall. This is Lynn Folk for Tennessee Kaleidoscope with Martha Flack, secretary to Trenton's mayor, as we looked at this $2 million collection, which was given to the city by a native son who lived most of his life in New York City.
He was a professor at New York University. He spent more than 40 years assembling the collection. And some years before his death, on one of his visits to his hometown, Trenton, he decided to give the entire collection to Trenton. He donated them to Trenton in 1955. He was born in 1889, and he died at the age of 87 in 1976.
Many of the values teapots in Dr. Frederick Freed's collection are in the form of human figures. Some represent figures from mythology. Others are shaped like exotic animals, and some look like castles or other buildings. Most of them are made of the finest porcelain, but the most valuable one is made of ivory and gold. This is the world's largest collection of values teapots. These did contain tea, but served another purpose also.
They were really used for feeding infants and sick back in the 18th century. A small ceramic dish of oil with a floating wick was placed in the pedestal base, and when lighting, the flame not only warmed the food in the bowl above, but the translucent pedestal sides will also provide a soft night light for the nursery or sick room.
But they really do. You make tea, regular tea in them, I suppose, or herb tea or something like that.
And they all have a spout. Now, some of them you can't see the spouts. I mean, maybe they're in the hair or they're in the hat or the arm, but all of them do have a spout.
Tell me the name of, what is it, starts with a V?
The French term is veilleuse, spelled V-E-I-L-L-E-U-S-E and pronounced veilleuse, meaning a sort of a night lamp. These were made by potteries mostly in the 18th century in England, France, Germany. But by the 19th century, the food warming bowl had given way to a teapot and designs that became too elaborate, particularly in France. By the turn of the century, well, the day of the veilleuse was over, and they had become so elaborate and expensive that only the very well-to-do could afford them, and with the market thus limited, the potteries which produced them went out of business, and they were very hard to find. The teapots were collected from different countries: France, Belgium, Sweden, Holland, Germany, Spain, Portugal, Switzerland, Italy, Greece, Turkey, Africa, Egypt, Thailand, Singapore, Hong Kong, and even Tupelo, Mississippi. There are 2 or 3 from the United States, but most of them were collected from the other countries.
Was this room then especially built for this collection?
No, this is our council chamber. And when he donated these, the first group that he sent, they had them in the high school. Then he had decided to send the remainder of the teapots, give it to a museum in New York. And then he came home on this visit, and some of his friends from here said, why don't you just send them all back here to your hometown? So when he decided to do that, they said, well, we've got to have a bigger place and cabinets and all that. And they decided to put them here in the council room, and he had these special cabinets, dust-proof cabinets made for them. And so that's where they've been ever since.
Martha Flack in Trenton, Tennessee, population 4,600, which is known as the City of the Teapots. There's a Teapot Festival here every year, and always the collection in the City Hall may be viewed 24 hours a day. If the City Hall office is closed, there's a key next door at the fire hall. And visitors are always welcome, and they come here from all over the world to see this collection of 525 values teapots. This program, Tennessee Kaleidoscope, made possible with the joint support of the National Endowment for the Arts, the Tennessee Arts Commission, and Choices Restaurant in Franklin. This is Lynn Folk.
I have a little clip that I can strap to my hand, and in it I can clip pencils or paintbrushes. Either they have to be added to a little bit to make them about the size of a pencil or pen, or carve the brush down a little bit to where it'll fit in this clip, and then I can snap them in and out and strap that to my hand. Since the accident, I can't use my fingers. I've got pretty good control of my arms, but I can't use my fingers at all.
Bryan Adams of Kingsport is dedicated to his developing career as an artist. Since 1978, when he was involved in an auto accident, he's been a quadriplegic. This is Lynn Folk for Tennessee Kaleidoscope with Bryan Adams, who stayed many months in a hospital, then went to the Patricia Neal Rehabilitation Center in Knoxville, and now he's at home where he spends several hours each day drawing and painting wildlife and scenery, using a special clip strapped to his wrist to maneuver his pens and brushes. For him, finishing one piece often takes as long as 2 months.
I find them quite a bit slower than most artists I've talked to. They seem to be able to turn out pretty quick. It takes me at least a couple of months, usually on every picture.
Can you work very long at a time?
I can usually spend a couple, 3 hours maybe, pretty steady. Then take a break and try and get back at it for maybe a couple more. Might get in 5 hours through a day or something like that on a good day.
I imagine it would be more tiring than just holding a brush in your hand.
Yeah, I guess it seems to be.
Where do you get ideas for your work?
I collect pictures, clippings from magazines, anything I can see, a little bit of imagination, just anything I can find. If I like the looks of it, I collect it, cut it out, keep it in folders. And when I get ready to start another one, I'll go through all those folders till I can come up with an idea or something to start from. Maybe I'll decide on a certain animal, and then maybe I'll see a background that I think this animal would look good in, and maybe take 2 or 3 pictures and come up with one idea and try to work from there.
Are you involved in any art groups or classes or anything in Kingsport now?
No, ma'am. I paint there at the house, and that's about it.
Do you have sort of a studio where you live?
In my bedroom, we've built, it's kind of like a drawing or an architect table, and rigged up some lights on it, and spend my time in there working. Yeah.
Isn't it wonderful that you can find something to do?
It sure is. I had a lot of spare time, a lot of time to just sit, and you think about what you can do or what you'd like to do, and I enjoy drawing, painting, and so I started trying to do more of it and more of it, and then now I do it pretty much every day. I mean, except Sundays. I don't fool with it on Sunday, but any time that I've got spare time through the day, then I enjoy working with it.
Well, do you sell these, or have you thought about selling them, or what plans do you have in order to use them?
I did them. I mean, I was going to do them whether anybody else liked them or not, because I enjoyed it. And my family, friends, they liked them, and I gave them away as gifts. And other people are finding out about them and calling and coming to see me or things like this. And I'm getting some offers to buy, people making requests and things. And so I guess we'll just have to see where it leads.
Bryan Adams of Kingsport at the first public showing of his work, where he was invited to be the special guest artist at the Freedom Hall Fine Art Exhibition in Johnson City, sponsored by the Watauga Valley Art League. This program, Tennessee Kaleidoscope, made possible with the joint support of the National Endowment for the Arts, the Tennessee Arts Commission, and Johnson & Higgins of Tennessee, insurance brokers, and employee benefit consultants. This is Lynn Folk.
Tennessee, Tennessee, state of the volunteers. Tennessee, Tennessee, 86 is homecoming year.
Along with the homecoming celebrations here in Tennessee, there will be lots of music of all kinds. This is Lynn Folk for Tennessee Kaleidoscope in Milan, Tennessee, where Ben Stockard has written the music and words for a special song expressing his thoughts about his native state. We talked briefly outside the Southgate restaurant in Milan, just after the Lions Club luncheon meeting, where Ben Stockard's song was featured in a performance by his band, a group of business and professional men who play mainly for enjoyment. This musical group has been entertaining for civic and social events in the Milan area for a good long time, and Ben Stockard's career as a musician and entertainer goes back at least 40 years to the Grand Ole Opry, where he performed with his sister.
I had a sister, Annie Lou and Danny Deal, that performed back in the 40s and 50s.
Oh, and did you play, did you perform on the Opry yourself, too?
I performed with them back in the 40s, yes.
Have you always been from Milan?
I was raised in a community here they call Skull Bone, Tennessee. You may have never heard of that, but yes, in the vicinity of Milan.
And you have a special song that you played for us today at the Lions Club meeting, a homecoming song.
I tried to look back at part of the history of Tennessee, David Crockett and Daniel Boone, and of course the Smoky Mountains and the Mississippi River on the west, and I tried to put some of these thoughts together to come up with a thought, and then in the song, of course, 86 being homecoming year.
We've sung the songs of the Golden West, songs of the pioneer. Here's a story I've always heard of the state of the volunteer. As you travel here, as you travel there, many other sights to see. And when you go to Full Saddle, you'll know you're in Tennessee.
We entertain for civic fairs, and we entertain simply, as I said, for our own amusement. Some of us, I have followed it professionally back many years ago, but I do it now just for, as I say, for my own amusement.
This is just sort of a recreation thing for most of these people, I guess, this music, and something that they enjoy doing.
Yes, Argyle Graves is the Chevrolet Buick Pontiac dealer. O'Teen Elliott, that plays with the group, owns a music store here in Milan. The electric lead guitar player is an engineer with ITT. I'm with personnel with A.O. Smith Company here in Milan. And the bass player is a factory worker, just from various walks of life.
Well, I guess you have to practice quite often, don't you?
We try to get together maybe once or twice in a week or 2 week period, something like that.
Well, I know it keeps you busy.
We really enjoy getting together and entertaining groups, and I guess that's one of the greater rewards of an entertainer is getting out and entertaining people.
The fame of this state is nationwide, from the Smokies to the Mississippi, from Parker's Crossroad to the Alamo, Tennessee claims some history. As we send this message out to you from across our home state, we're inviting you to come back home, help us to celebrate. Tennessee, Tennessee, state of the volunteers. Tennessee, Tennessee, 86 is homecoming year.
Ben Stockard and friends who enjoy entertaining in the Milan, Tennessee area. The homecoming song he wrote was featured at the Lions Club meeting the day I was there, and I recorded it from across the room. This program, Tennessee Kaleidoscope, made possible with the joint support of the National Endowment for the Arts, the Tennessee Arts Commission, and the WPLN Educational Foundation. This is Lynn Folk.
We've had a lot of fun with it, but it's been a lot of work too. Since it's been in the homecoming book, the Tennessee A Homecoming, we felt kind of an obligation to get this thing back before the public again. It's a pretty good little job to take it from one town to another. Plus, we got to have a time that a lot of the people can get together and do this, you know, because all of them are practicing artists. So it gets kind of hard to get them all together and get everything to come together at the same time. Sometimes we get a little ill with each other and a little uptight. We've lost a lot of sleep over this thing.
The Tennessee Artist Train, built by members of the Tri-Cities chapter of the Tennessee Artists Association. It's pictured in Jonesboro in the book Tennessee A Homecoming. It's been in several cities throughout the state and will be traveling around to lots of parades and festivals in 1986. Wherever it appears, the coach passengers are local celebrities or persons dressed appropriately as figures in Tennessee history. This is Lynn Folk for Tennessee Kaleidoscope after a parade in Johnson City, when I talked with Jerry Hunnicutt, one of the artists involved in construction of the train, gathering materials for it, and keeping it going from place to place after a series of minor mishaps.
The first time we ran it over a forklift, and the fellow sold the forklift, so we didn't have any way to make this thing go again, so we recently acquired a 1968 Buick Skylark, and we took the body off of it. Took about 3 foot out of the frame and welded it back together and built a subframe and fitted this thing back on it. It took us about 2 weeks, pretty much every night, to get it back to where it could run again. When he started to pull it up in there to display it today, it tore the whole side out of it, and we'll have to rebuild that part now. And Murphy's Law was working overtime because the next thing was he hit a telephone pole and tore half the cow catcher off of it. So we got some more work to do to it. But you know, it's alive and well as far as I know right now.
Well, what is the outside of the train made of, or was made of, before all these things happened to it?
Well, it's made out of styrofoam, aluminum, paneling, 1x2s, 1x4s. We've had paint donated. We've scrounged paint. We've begged and borrowed, and it's been like one giant scavenger hunt. You know, we got the bell off a lady's back porch, and the whistle was a kind of a trophy that a fellow had. You know, he collects train whistles and all this kind of thing, and he's a great train enthusiast, and he'd never heard it blow till we got a hold of it.
How large is this train? Is it all engine, or are there cars to it also?
It's about 15, 16 feet long, probably 7 feet high. It's got an engine, and then we have a coach that we built behind it. We got a certain amount of expense that goes along with this. The smoke and the steam is CO2 fire extinguishers, and they get kind of expensive, you know. So when we run it in Greenville, we were talking to them about some of the area merchants who had a fire extinguisher maybe that was on the verge of kind of needing to be recharged, to donate the fire extinguisher, and we'll put it to good use. Not that we'll keep it that, you know, they can have it refilled, but most of the time it takes about 4 fire extinguishers to make all of our smoke and steam, and we use compressed air, CO2 to blow the whistle.
You certainly sound like a resourceful bunch of people.
Well, we've used, like I said earlier, about the materials. We've got curtain rods on it for the brass rails, got the little rubber stickers that you normally put on the back of a painting for the rivets in the side, in the boiler. We cut the letters out and stuck the vinyl letters on and put the gold vinyl on it to make it look like brass. It's painted red, white, and blue, even down to the little drive rods on the wheels, and it's been quite an experience.
This handsome red, white, and blue train proudly displays the words Tennessee Artists on its front. Heard today, artist Jerry Hunnicutt of Johnson City. This program, Tennessee Kaleidoscope, made possible with the joint support of the National Endowment for the Arts, the Tennessee Arts Commission, and Johnson & Higgins of Tennessee, insurance brokers, and employee benefit consultants. This is Lynn Folk.
I'm Alexander Dumas.
I see you have an orange jacket on. You must be certainly involved with the University of Tennessee.
Yes, indeed. I paint the big orange.
Alexander Dumas of Knoxville doing what many sports fans would like to do, painting the Tennessee Vol football team in action. This is Lynn Folk for Tennessee Kaleidoscope with him at the Freedom Hall Art Show in Johnson City. Dumas, in addition to his football artistry, is working actively for Ducks Unlimited, doing wildlife paintings, but his chief art interest is Big Orange football.
I do actual plays from Tennessee football games.
Do you go to all the games and then reproduce the plays, you mean?
I don't go to all of the games, but I do work from game photographs, and I try to be as authentic as humanly possible.
And why do you do this now? Is there a market for it, or are you assigned to do it?
For one reason, I enjoy it, and there is a market for it that I've actually helped create.
You must be a football fan then, yourself.
Oh, yes, very much so. I am a football fan.
Did you play football for UT?
No, not hardly.
Did you go to UT?
No, I didn't go to UT. I went to University of Virginia.
You must live in Knoxville now.
Yes, I do, and well, I've lived in Knoxville for the past 25 years, and the orange creeps into one's blood.
Do you pick out certain plays, certain spectacular plays to paint?
That's the general idea, is to find a particular play which exemplifies the particular game. It's a goal line stand or pass reception or something of that nature, which was a turning point in the game. This is what I look for preferably.
And where do you get the photographs then? Do you take the photographs?
No, I'm not a photographer, and it involves being in the right place at the right time. It's a split-second type of thing. And I know, for instance, the Knoxville News Sentinel will take 1,000 photographs sometimes of one game, and they may have to look for something and even clip and crop to find something decent, because if you're not there at that right split second, you don't have that fantastic photograph.
Do you have access to those photographs then?
I use various sources for the photographs that I do use.
Do you work with the university on this, or is this just a private venture of yours?
Well, I am licensed by the University of Tennessee as far as using insignia that are licensed by the university, and I have done several things for the university. I have never received a penny from the university for anything that I have done, however. I'm a volunteer.
Tell me what else you do beside the football painting.
I paint a tremendous variety of subject matter, and right now I'm involved in the finals of the Ducks Unlimited Waterfowl Artist of the Year competition.
Could you explain that to me?
Well, Ducks Unlimited, as many people are aware, purchases lands for waterfowl habitat and to keep them preserve the habitat in a manner in which ducks can reproduce. And the funds that are raised go to purchasing these lands. And this is all part of that project.
Do you travel around there to look at the lands for the paintings that you do?
Well, I do a certain amount of investigative work as far as authenticity. If it's a marsh-type painting, I do find an area where the cattails grow and this type of thing. And an artist who paints wildlife must know what particular animals or birds survive on and put them in a proper habitat.
Do you do other things beside ducks?
I've painted most of the large cats. I've done many of the large animals as well as the small ones. But I paint fox, owls, you name it, I painted it. I'm primarily self-taught, but I've studied, well, I don't know if you'd say studied, I've actually painted with a number of very fine artists on location, a marine artist down in Florida, landscape artist up in New England, and with Mickey McGuire, who's a member of the Western Artists Association out west. I painted on location with him quite extensively. But primarily I'm self-taught.
Some people say that artists have to be self-taught, and others say that you have to have instruction.
Well, I'm too old to have any regrets about the way I'm going about it.
Knoxville artist Alexander Dumas, who catches the big orange on canvas at football games. I talked with him at his display booth at the Freedom Hall Fine Arts Exhibition in Johnson City. This program, Tennessee Kaleidoscope, made possible with the joint support of the National Endowment for the Arts, the Tennessee Arts Commission, and the WPLN Educational Foundation. This is Lynn Folk.
You had your radio tuned in to WSM about 7 o'clock on a Saturday. 50 years ago, you might have heard this.
About 50 years ago, several musicians from Pulaski journeyed to Nashville to perform on WSM Radio's Saturday programs. Jean Smith Mackey played her marimba at these sessions, and at a special meeting of the Giles County Historical Society, she was honored, as were many other local people who've made musical history. This is Lynn Folk for Tennessee Kaleidoscope at that nostalgic gathering, where there was a marimba solo by Jean Mackey. Then there was a selection by violinist Mary Teresa Patterson, who over the years taught many young Giles Countians to play the violin. And there were the serenaders, who play even now for local dances and social affairs. A portion of the program was devoted to old-timers who remembered playing in the municipal band, and recollections from others about the grand days of the Opera House in the center of town. But the loudest and longest applause of all went to Johnny Bridgeforth, a former entertainer on the nightclub circuit, as he played request after request on his electronic organ for the crowd. But that's not all the music from Pulaski. Here's a record made on a different occasion back in the early 40s, Red Foley singing Giles County, Pulaski Post Office.
When I was but a little child, sitting on my mamma's knee, she said, "Now, son, look here a while. Pay attention and listen to me. When you grow up to be a man, you might roam plumb over the sea, but keep heading back, you understand, to the place where you ought to be. That's Giles County, Pulaski Post Office in the state of Tennessee. The folks will always welcome you, they're happy as can be. They'll feed you possum and candied yam, red-eye gravy and smokehouse ham in Giles County, Pulaski Post Office in the state of Tennessee.
There's a story involved with obtaining that music. Margaret Butler of the Giles County Historical Society knew of the recording, and she tried to track it down for Homecoming 86, going to the local radio stations where it was suggested that she contact record shops.
I did, and they could not help me. So I went to my query column in the Historical Society's bulletin and asked if anybody had one, would they please let us have a copy. And a lady from Texas sent us a copy, which she said she donated to the Homecoming 86 program. And that's the only one that I know of. The radio station made copy recordings of it, and they play it every once in a while, and we'll play it more.
In case any of you folks ever want to come down this way, there's a sign right out on the road, and it'll say Giles County, Pulaski Post Office in the state of K-N-O-C.
Special thanks to Margaret Butler for the Red Foley record, and to all the musicians and historians of Giles County. This program, Tennessee Kaleidoscope, made possible with the joint support of the National Endowment for the Arts, the Tennessee Arts Commission, and the WPLN Educational Foundation. This is Lynn Folk.
Well, I tell you what, do most of the stuff for senior citizens. I make quilts, I make hats, I mend clothes. I do anything come to hand for old people. I got 5 or 6 quilts back there now.
Mary Frances Jones in Henning, Tennessee. This is Lynn Folk for Tennessee Kaleidoscope. When I visited Henning, a West Tennessee town with a population of about 600 people, I saw the home of author Alex Haley, and I walked up and down the street, going into the grocery store and the city hall, looking through the windows of some empty buildings, too. Then I found the Henning Neighborhood Service Center, a place which is headquarters for the Green Thumb program, a place where assistance is given to the indigent, and where an atmosphere of kindness was most evident, partly because Mary Frances Jones was there making quilts from used clothing and giving them away to those who need them.
And I donate them to senior citizen people, old people that need cover. Since I've been working here, I knew I've made better than 100 quilts and give them away.
And how long have you been working here?
I started to work here in '79, the 5th day of March.
And you say you make the quilts and then you do all these other things. You make clothing also?
Can make clothing too for them. Just like they have something they want men, I do that. And put zippers in pants, things like that, I do that.
Tell me about Henning and how long you have lived here, and I'm sure that you have known Alex Haley at some time or another.
I moved down here in '41, but I didn't know Alex Haley when I moved. I just met him a few years ago.
Did you know his family? And
when we first moved down here, some of his people were living in the home house. I think it was his grandma and his aunt.
And where did you move here from?
Brownsville.
Do you like it here in Henning?
Fine. Like it fine.
You have a family here, do you?
I had one, but my husband passed. And I got 4 children, but they're all away from him.
Has Henning changed very much in the years that you've lived here?
It changed some, because when we first came down here, they had dry goods stores and plenty of grocery stores. And most all of these buildings here was full, but they're all gone down.
The fact that it's getting so much recognition now because of Alex Haley and all, do you think that's going to help the town to build up?
I hope it will.
Alex Haley doesn't live here anymore.
No, he don't live here no more.
Have you had a lot of people come to Henning to find out about him and see where he lived?
Well, now where Haley got this stone up here at the church, I see a lot of people go there and take pictures of that stone.
You say the stone at the church? Now, what is that?
It's just a stone there with home of Alex Haley's on it. And it's right there in front of my house. And I can just sit in the door and look at the people, go there and take pictures of it.
We were talking about your quilts. Where do you get the material that you make the quilts from?
You know, just like you got some old clothes that you don't want. You bring them here and donate them to the center. And some people will come in here and get those clothes to wear them. But when they pick all over them and get what they want, the best of them, I take the worst of them and I make quilts out of them and donate them to senior citizen folks.
And how do you decide what colors to use? Your quilts are so colorful and all. Do you have a special plan for colors?
Just cut them and make 9 patches, sew them together.
What kind of materials are they? I even saw some jeans materials there.
Some of it is made out of blue jean pants, and then some of it is made out of double knit dresses. You know, the folks used to buy these double knit dresses, and you know, they didn't wear out fast. And they brought them here and nobody didn't want them. And I took them and put a piece quilt out of them.
I see.
People would donate me some quilt pieces, scraps. And I took the best of the scraps and made caps, because so many times people would want a hat and say I ain't able to buy it. And I make those caps and give it to them. So many times some people want a straw hat and wasn't able to buy a straw hat. I have made bonnets and give them.
Mary Frances Jones at the Neighborhood Service Center in Henning, Tennessee. This program, Tennessee Kaleidoscope, made possible with the joint support of the National Endowment for the Arts, the Tennessee Arts Commission, and Dale and Associates, civil engineers and land planners in Nashville. This is Lynn Folk.